This year, Peergy Journal published an interesting article in which the level of stress was investigated. In general, our idea of stress is that if we are not skilled in doing something, we will experience a high level of stress, and the more skill and mastery we gain in the subject, the less stress we will experience, because with increasing mastery of things, the level of stress will decrease. To determine this, researchers examined flamenco dancers. The summary procedure of the experiment was that the dancers were divided into different groups based on experience. The dancers were divided into 3 groups: beginners, professionals, and dancers who had several prestigious positions. The description of the experiment was that the dancers were subjected to a stress level test before the start of the competition through oral saliva test. Various hormones, such as cortisol, were measured, and the level of stress the dancer endured was measured. The experiments continued for a long time in various competitions on the studied subjects. The result of the experiment was very interesting and far from the researchers' imagination. The amount of stress that each person suffers is different according to the personality of each person, but in general, based on the results of the tests, it can be claimed that regardless of the influence of personality type, mastery in the subject of the activity does not have much effect on the level of stress experienced and does not affect the level of stress of people. On the other hand, it is true that any type of activity causes different mental pressure to people in constant conditions, but in a constant activity, the level of stress experienced by people has no significant relationship with their mastery of the subject. To clarify the issue, we will turn to another experiment in which the stress level of beginner and professional skydivers was investigated. The result was that an activity like skydiving imposes a much higher level of stress on people on average. There are few activities like parachuting that impose such a level of stress on a person. On the other hand, the type of activity is very effective in the level of stress experienced by people, but if we consider the activity constant, the degree of people's mastery of the tested activity does not have a significant effect on the level of stress imposed on people. Very professional dancers who had several international positions in this field, and each of their muscles learned this dance automatically and performed it with their eyes closed, showed the same level of stress as beginner dancers. Of course, as an average of the whole group, because each person experiences different levels of stress depending on their personality. The most interesting result of this experiment is also summarized in this point. Mostly, we think that if something is stressful for us, we should reduce our stress level by repeating and practicing and mastering the subject. While repeating and practicing and mastering the subject does not reduce the stress level, but increases self-confidence and ability cause to gaining mental control over stressful situations. Do you remember the first time you took driving lessons? We all endured a lot of stress in this situation, and gradually driving became a normal thing for us. But the fact is that the same level of cortisol hormone is released in our body while driving. Only mentally, we have easily found the ability to manage the situation and maintain our composure. With a lot of repetition, we have reached a stage of mental ability where we don't even notice that our heart rate increases and our body temperature rises, and we easily handle the situation. We are dominant. So we suggest that from now on, to reduce your stress level, you should rely more on your mental control ability and don't think too much about removing the stress factor.